Dawn has not yet coloured the horizon when the boatswain's whistle cuts the dark. The deck is slick with cold spray off the Bristol Channel, the hemp rigging wet as sealskin under your hands. You taste salt and tar in the back of your throat. Somewhere in the gloom, a pump clanks, beating back the Atlantic that always tries to come in. It is the year 1716, and a merchantman's world grinds on 4 hours at a time. Before we dive in, if you truly enjoy what I share here, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe, it means a lot. And in the comments, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'm always fascinated to see this community connecting across the world. Now, settle in. Dim the lights, maybe let a fan hum softly in the background, and let's begin. Hard biscuit knocks against a tin mug. You soften it with brackish water that smells faintly of wood and algae. The captain's shadow rules the quarterdeck like a crown, and the lash hangs ready near the mainmast. 9 knotted tails for small offences dressed up as big ones. Wages come only at voyage's end, if at all. A careless step from the tops can cost a life in a heartbeat. On the lower deck, a sour breath rises from the bilge and turns every lantern into a halo in fog. Men cough through the night, teeth loosen, old wounds open again for no reason anyone can see. This is the part of the story the ballads skip. The work is unending and ordinary. Caulk a seam, scrub a plank, reef canvas when a wind line darkens the water to gunmetal. Your hands swell, then split, then harden. The boatswain calls, you answer, and the ship trudges east and west on a schedule set by men far from the sea. The paymaster in port will count your months in coin or in excuses. None of this is new. What is new is a rumour that keeps finding its way into night talk. A different kind of ship. No one says the word first. It arrives the way a squall does, with a change of pressure and silence on the birds. The second mate lifts a glass at first light and stiffens. You are called to the braces. Off the larboard bow, hull down, a low sloop runs like a greyhound, all taut canvas and purpose. She closes the miles as if the ocean were a road she knows well. She flies colours you cannot read. The master shouts for more way. Your heavy merchantman answers like a tired ox. The stranger throws a puff of white from her side. A moment later the boom reaches you, broad and deep. A ball skips high and hissing across your bow, close enough to feel the slap of spray. The message is as old as cannon. Stop. Your captain reads the distances, reads the crew, and reads the cargo manifest that will not lift him out of this. He lowers his flag. Men swallow hard. Somewhere, a prayer is said quickly and without words. Hooks bite your rail. They come over cleanly, not as a riot but as a team that has done this before. Their clothes are faded like yours. Their hands are rope-burned like yours. Their pistols are clean, and their eyes are steady. One steps forward. Who is not the captain? You can tell by his stance he does not need a title to be obeyed. He is the quartermaster. His voice carries without shouting. No one here is looking to murder a forecastle of ordinary sailors, he says. They want the cargo and they want hands who will choose to be here. The offer is simple and delivered like a contract. Stay with your master, take your chances with withheld wages and the whip, or cross the rail and have a vote, a share, and a say. No man will be forced. A forced man is a dangerous man in a gale. You look sideways. Faces you have known for months are unreadable, everyone calculating in private. A boy from Devon shakes his head. An older topman stares at the sea as if it could answer for him. The boatswain, who barked at you before dawn, finds the deck planks very interesting. The quartermaster waits. His crew waits. No one hurries you. It is disarming, this patience. You think of the pay chest that never seems to open all the way. You think of the cat striking a back that might be yours next time. You think of that foul water turning in your stomach, and the way your fingers ache after a night in the tops when the wind bites to the bone. You think of dying for another man's schedule. The rope in your hand is stiff with salt. You can feel every twist of the fibres. Somewhere behind you a gull cries, quick and thin. 3 men step forward. You feel your legs move of their own accord. The quartermaster nods once, not like a salesman who has made a sale, but like a clerk who has entered a name in a ledger. A plank bridges the two worlds. You cross it. The deck under your boots feels different, tighter, cleaner, built for speed. A tin mug is pressed into your hand. Rum watered to grog finds its way down and warms you in a single line from throat to chest. The ship breathes around you. Canvas slaps, blocks creak, someone laughs low and easy. You have not heard laughter like that at sea in months. Stillness follows the choice. Your old captain orders his lines cast off and slides away, lightened by cargo lost and crew reduced. No jeers from the sloop. No threats. Your new ship returns to itself as if an organ has resumed its rhythm. The man who invited you aboard gathers the recruits and unrolls a sheet of parchment creased from use. The edges are dark with thumbprints. He says there will be no kings here. There will be rules instead, rules you will help write. Tonight, the lamp by the mainmast will throw a yellow circle on wood, and ink will dry under stars. Tomorrow you will learn how a floating republic keeps from breaking apart. The parchment waits, the quill points like a small spear, and the quartermaster's eyes hold you to account more gently than any pistol could. Next, we step into those rules, the articles that replace a tyrant with a contract, and fear with a share. The parchment crackles when the quartermaster smooths it across a barrel head. Lamp smoke curls in the night breeze and the wax on the tallow candle pools, warm against your knuckles. The sea keeps a slow hiss against the hull. A few hours ago you crossed a narrow plank from one world to another. Now the new one asks you to sign your name beneath its laws. He reads in a steady voice, not as a tyrant but as a clerk of a commonwealth. Articles vary by crew, he says, but the bones are the same. First, every man has a vote in the great affairs of the moment. You will meet by call of drum or whistle. You will argue. You will decide. The words feel strange on a deck, where your hand still remembers the sting of the cat. Second, you elect a captain to command in chase and battle, and you may remove him by majority if he proves cowardly, wasteful, or unjust in the calm days between fights. Power, you learn, is a rope to be spliced and unspliced, not a chain to be worn forever. He reads on. The quartermaster, his own office, is chosen by the company to stand as the crew's advocate. He manages stores, shares, discipline, and division of the prize. In many matters of peace, his word outweighs the captain's. If two men quarrel, they will not brawl in the cramped dark below. They will settle it on shore, pistols or cutlasses at dawn, with witnesses and rules. Lights are out at 8 bells of the first dog-watch fire is a hungry enemy in a wooden world. Cards and dice are permitted by some ships and banned by others, but cheating is punished everywhere. Pistols are to be kept clean, flints sharp, cutlasses free of rust. Bringing a woman aboard is forbidden on most articles, not from piety, the quartermaster says dryly, but because jealousy is as dangerous to a tight crew as powder is to a spark. Then the line that governs your stomach and your future. No prey, no pay. There will be no wages on the month. Your living comes in shares when a prize is taken and sold. The scale is simple enough to fit in the head of a man who cannot read. The captain receives 2 full shares, the quartermaster 1.5. The gunner, boatswain, carpenter, and if you are lucky enough to have one, the surgeon, each a share and a quarter or thereabout. Every able seaman, 1 good share. Plunder kept back before the general division, the quiet coin slipped into a pocket. The silver buckle hidden in a sock is theft from the company and punished as the worst betrayal a man can do to his brothers. A murmur lifts at the next clause. Injury money. Many crews set fixed compensations in pieces of 8 for wounds taken in service. 600 for a right arm, 500 for a left, 500 for a leg, 100 for an eye, a lesser sum for a finger or a maiming that leaves a man fit for light duty. The quartermaster taps the parchment with an ink-dark finger. This is paid out before any shares, he says, so a broken man is not left to beg in the street of Nassau while his mates count their coins. The numbers are not charity, they are insurance written in silver. He reaches the end and looks up. The deck holds its breath. Every clause is both liberty and leash. You will be heard, but you will also be bound. You escaped a king to consent to a contract. It is late. The stars over the western horizon smear into a pale river. Somewhere, a block ticks as the ship swings to a gentler swell. A scrap of night wind threads the candle and the flame gutters. Names are called. Some men write theirs in a rough schoolboy hand, others draw a mark they have practiced at tavern tables. Ink scratches like a small animal. When the quill comes to you, your palm still smells faintly of tar. You shape the letters slowly, careful as if carving them into plank. It is the best handwriting you have ever done. The quartermaster nods and sands the wet ink. You shake his hand and feel callous meet callous. You witness your first vote before dawn. The captain proposes returning to the Caicos Passage to hunt sugar ships. The sailing master prefers the windward passage between Cuba and Hispaniola, where currents and trade winds funnel fat prizes. Questions fly, a dozen men have run those waters and know where soundings shoal and where frigates prowl. In the end, hands rise to the shrouds and the windward passage carries the day. The captain does not sulk. He smiles, folds his chart, and gives the necessary orders to make the new course. Choice turns to motion like wind into canvas. By sunrise, the articles are rolled tight and bound with twine, to be kept in the great chest with coin and powder. The candle is pinched out. Morning smells of wet hemp and yesterday's cook fire. The quartermaster posts a short list of duties for the day. Inspection of pistols and flints, a look to the spare spars, a careful check of the powder room's dry barrels, lest a slow leak ruin your next fight before it starts. You realize the code is not a speech, it is a practice lived in small habits, kept in repeated tasks, enforced by men who will face danger beside you. By noon, the watch is relieved and a boy beats a tune on a drumhead. Mess tins clatter along the galley bulkhead, and the cook's ladle thunks against an iron pot. The rules are in your head now, a low hum beneath thought. You will not feel them again as words unless someone breaks them. Mostly, you will feel them as the order in a crowded space, as the calm that makes speed possible. The quartermaster rolls the parchment one last time, slips it into its oiled leather cover, and stows it. He points down the main hatch with a small grin. If you're to keep the code, you'd best know the place you'll be keeping it in. The ladder rungs are worn smooth by bare feet. A wash of warm air rises from below, thick with the mixed scents of tar, wool, and the sour heart of the ship. Your hammock spot, he says, waits 2 guns forward. Down there, inches matter. Down there, a dry seam is the difference between rest and rot. Down there is where this republic sleeps. Before you sling your hammock, the rules you sign must breathe. Dawn has burned off the mist east of Hispaniola, and the sloop rocks in a long, even swell. It is 1716, the 8th bell of the forenoon watch, when a drum taps 3 quick beats by the mainmast. Men gather, salt still drying on their coats, and the quartermaster lays the folded articles on a barrel head like a priest placing a missal. The hearing is small, but the code attends big matters and little ones alike. 2 topmen shoved each other at the galley last night. A knife showed, then vanished. The quartermaster's voice is calm, the crew's circle tight as a hoop. Each man speaks in turn. You learn how discipline works when there are no officers to fear, only peers to face. The judgment is swift. No brawling on board. They will settle it ashore, pistols at 10 paces with seconds and rules, or shake hands now and forfeit a week's grog. Pride deflates, hands meet. The drum taps once. The code has prevented a quarrel from turning into blood in a cramped space of wood, tar and powder. Order grows from habit. At sunset, the sailmaker snuffs a lamp and calls lights out at 8. Fire on a wooden ship is a fast, hungry thing. The rule is not piety, it is survival. Weapons inspections follow the next noon. Pistols bright, flints sharp, cutlasses oiled, and free of red rust. The quartermaster checks a bag of spare flints and a coil of slow match as if they were coin. You feel the code not as parchment, but as rhythms drum, lamp, inspection, vote, that leave few places for carelessness to hide. Then comes the article that shapes the stomach and the soul. No prey, no pay. There are no wages. There is only the common stock and the division of shares when luck and skill turn canvas into money. A fat Spanish merchantman taken near the Windward Passage last month taught the lesson better than words. After the prize was sold in a quiet Bahamian cove, the quartermaster called the roll aloud. The captain took 2 shares. The quartermaster took 1.5. The gunner and carpenter each a little more than a full man's portion. Every able seaman men like you received 1 good share, counted openly into a bag heavy with pieces of 8. There was no accounting error, no captain's fines for invented slights, no pay withheld until landfall months away. Fairness was a spectacle, and it kept the hull from splitting along invisible lines. Fairness required teeth. Pre-division theft, skimming a buckle or palming a coin before the count was condemned as betrayal. Punishments varied by crew and vote, a hard flogging, forfeiture of future shares, even marooning on a sand key with water, a pistol, and a single shot. These were not rules for show. They were the walls of the only house you had. A man could gamble away his rum ration at dice if the articles allowed gaming, but he could not shave the company's purse. The difference was the line between vice and treason. The code also wrote an insurance table into the sea. You heard the numbers the night you signed. 600 pieces of 8 for a right arm lost in action, 500 for a left, similar sums for a leg, 100 for an eye. Other crews set other scales, but the principle held. Compensation came first before any shares, so a maimed man would not vanish into Nassau's alleys while his mates drank. It was rough justice, paid in silver and dignity. On the old merchantman, a crushed hand meant a pat on the shoulder and nothing else. Here, pain bought security the way courage bought coin. You watch how authority moves when the wind shifts. In chase or battle, the captain becomes a single sharp instrument. His orders cut through smoke, and no one argues. But when the guns are run in and the decks sluiced, power returns to the circle. Where to cruise next? How to swap a captured 9-pounder for 2 6s? Whether to take a risk in the Mona Passage or work easy pickings along Cuba's north shore. Hands rise, voices weigh weather, currents, and rumour. Decisions do not take long, they take everyone. Not every article is a mirror of the next ship's. Some crews award a fiddler a half share to keep tunes at mess. Others forbid gaming entirely. Many ban women aboard to head off jealousies that turn deadly in tight quarters. A few set fines for drunk men neglecting arms. Others tolerate a heavy hand with the bottle ashore, so long as powder stays dry at sea. What is constant is consent. The code lives because men agree to carry it, and because they can unmake and remake it by vote, when experience proves a clause foolish. Enforcement is as public as the payout. When a man is punished, the ship watches. When a man is cleared, the ship watches. That visibility is the ballast. It keeps fear from pooling in dark corners, the way bilge water does. It turns resentment into talk, and talk into law. You begin to understand why former Navy men say they breathe easier here, even when a frigate's topmasts loom on the horizon like a gallows in the sky. At dusk, a sea breeze lifts, resin and salt riding it into the waist of the ship. A boy beats a soft tattoo as the watch changes. The quartermaster rolls the articles, returns them to their oiled leather cover, and snaps the brass clasp shut. The parchment will sleep in the chest with powder and coin until called for again. You run a thumb along the edge of your own mark, still faintly gritty from sanded ink. The ship sighs as the swell turns, and the deck under your bare feet feels warm from the day. Now the code has a place to live inches of air and canvas below. Follow the quartermaster down the ladder, into the half-light where hammocks swing, wood breathes, and the bilge whispers its sour secret. That is your home. From the circle of votes and clauses, the quartermaster pointed down the main hatch and said your bed was 2 guns forward. So we follow him now, same year, 1,716 down a ladder, whose rungs are polished by 1,000 bare feet. The air warms by degrees, tar and wood smoke cling to the throat. A lantern swings on its hook and throws slow ellipses of light. The ship's breath changes here. Above, wind, below, wood. The first thing you learn is distance. Hammocks' canvas slings with whipped edges and lanyards hang in 2 ranks, their clues seized to iron hooks in the deck beams. There is a foot or so between each sway, often less. You could touch 3 men with 1 outstretched arm. A tween decks like this often gives a tall man no more than 5.5 feet of headroom, so everyone walks with the learned stoop of sailors. The canvas cradles move with the sea and keep bones off wet planks. They also stack like cordage when cleared for action. Each bundle lashed and stowed in seconds so the gun crews have room to work. Light is precious, flame is peril. Candles are horn-guarded. Most nights end at 8 bells to keep sparks from meeting hemp. Powder lives abaft in a low, tight room the colour of chalk. No nails scrape there, no boots strike flint. A boy passes cartridges through a small glazed scuttle from a light room where flame is caged. He is barefoot to feel grit before it becomes disaster. The powder kegs themselves are roughed with rope for grip and wedged in chocks so a hard roll does not turn them to hammers. Along the bulwarks run shot garlands, wooden rings that hold round shot like black moons, each ball oiled and nested so it cannot rattle. Between the guns, pyramids of grape and canister squat in their netting. The iron mouths 4, 6 or 9 pounders, depending on what your ship has stolen, sit on trucks and recoil ropes, their breeching thick as a wrist. Each piece has a home and a family of hands. Gun captain, sponger and loader, train tackle men, a boy powder monkey who fetches cartridges from the magazine at a trot. In drill, the captain luffs and steadies, and the crew works in a rhythm that speaks louder than any shouted order. Worm, Sponge, charge, wad, shot, ram, prick, prime, run out, level, fire. Practice turns panic into muscle. Between these engines of persuasion, life threads itself. The cook's galley is a sheet iron box bricked and sanded into a corner, a small contained volcano with iron bars, because heat feeds the belly and threatens the hull in the same minute. His domain smells of salt meat and smoke. On lucky days, fresh oil hisses from a fish pan and men drift close as if to a hymn. Messes form by habit 6 or 8 men to a kid of peas, or a slab of beef tin spoons clinking in a music you learn to love because it means the ship is quiet. Clean is not the same as fresh. Every morning sand is strewn and men holystone the deck, pushing grit with both hands until the planks turn pale and the algae goes slick and then gone. Scuppers gulp the wash overboard. The pumps thump a steady baseline, 2 at least, always rigged, lifting the Bilge's sour green upward and away. You learn the smell by heart. Tar, sweat, old oak, a faint acid that never leaves the tongue. In hot calms, some captains smoke the decks with vinegar. Others burn sulphur and gunpowder to drive out vermin and stench. None of it lasts long. Salt has memory. Your world is measured in small economies. A sea chest under a gun carriage holds everything you own. A spare shirt, a palm and needle for canvas, a whetstone, a plug of tobacco wrapped in scrap sailcloth. Above, lines are coiled hand-tight on their pins and put back the same way every time. Order here is not fussy, it is fast. A misplaced coil is a tripping line in a squall, a spark in a powder trail. Even the slack has a home. There is ahead the necessary cut into the beakhead forward, where wind and spray make cleanliness the ship's contribution. In heavy weather, men use the lee channels and hold fast to shrouds, a compromise with dignity that the sea does not notice. Fresh water bathes no one, unless rain comes generous. Most wash in buckets over the side and call it done. Clothes dry where they can, over gun barrels, on lines strung between stanchions, on the warm deck itself when the sun blesses you. At night, the ship grows intimate. Hammocks whisper. A fiddler, if your crew has bought his half-share with votes, finds a slow tune, and it threads through oak like smoke. You feel the slight lift as the sloop meets a long swell, and the equally slight pause as she slides down the back of it. Rats move with professional discretion. Snoring rises and falls. At the far end of the deck, a man breathes through his teeth in the way of someone whose gums ache from scurvy. Another mutters a prayer learned from a mother who has never seen the sea. The lantern's flame draws a small, steady circle on a knee, a palm, a boot. The quartermaster will tell you that a clean deck is a fast deck. He means more than scrubbed planks. He means guns run out without fouling. Shot found where shot should be. Linstocks dry, slow match stored like coin, spare spars lashed along the channels ready to replace what a squall or broadside breaks. He means hammocks stowed in nettings in an instant when clear for action. Sounds, ladders unblocked, powder scuttles free, a line to every hand and a hand to every line. He means the difference between a ship that answers and a ship that argues with herself. Speed, in the end, is consent made physical. You find your place. Your hammock is quick to sling and quicker to furl now. You can, by touch alone, find the priming wire on your gun, the water bucket, the handspike, the worm's iron head. You notice how a good boatswain stores look like a sermon, neat, plain, and reliable. You notice how the sailing master keeps his stolen charts oiled and rolled, tucked in a tin under his bunk as if they were a second heart. You notice how every man adopts a corner, a hook, a box, until the ship is not just timber and tar but a map of habits. There will be moments when the hull groans and the lantern goes out, and you lie awake counting the creaks you know versus the ones you do not. In those moments, order is oxygen, stops being a neat phrase and becomes a breath you wait for. When it comes, in the sure thump of the pump, in the clean rattle of a line run home, you sleep again. By first light, a boy taps the watch change on a drumhead. 4 hours on, 4 off the rhythm that will govern your bones more strictly than any law. Work waits on deck, seams to caulk, rigging to tar, lookouts to relieve, canvas to set. The Republic breathes because hands keep it breathing. Next, we climb back into the wind and take up the watch bill, the daily grind that turns rope, wood, and will into miles. Morning comes with a soft drumming on a stretched drumhead and the faint animal creak of hemp under strain. From below, the last lantern winks out, and the deck smells of wet wood and yesterday's smoke. We have seen where you sleep and where the powder waits. Now we meet the hours that feed both. 4 on, 4 off forever, or so it feels in 1716 as your sloop works east of Cuba, where the trades keep their steady promise. A bell marks the half hours, the old sandglass flipped by the boy whose job is to keep time from slowing. 1 bell, then 2, up to 8. Each watch runs to 8 bells, then the other half of the crew relieves you. The 2 dog watches 4 to 6, 6 to 8 in the evening, shuffle the rhythm so the same men are not awake at the same dead hours for weeks. That small mercy saves tempers and, sometimes, lives. The only thing lighter than the work now is the fear behind it. Your day's first task is simple and endless. Keep water out and weather off. You kneel with a mallet and a blunt iron called a caulking iron and feed oakum tar-soaked fibres teased from old rope into seams between planks. The tap, tap, tap travels up your arm like a winter ache. A mate follows with a pot of warm pitch, sealing the line of packed oakum so the deck sheds rain and spray as a roof should. When sun climbs higher, you holystone. Shove a soft block of sandstone back and forth on sanded planks, scouring away slime until the boards show pale and clean. Your palms burn. The deck brightens. Order is not just seen, it is felt in the sure bite of bare feet on clean wood. Rigging needs its daily share of care. You're sent aloft with a bucket and a brush to pay the shrouds and stays with tar, a slow black varnish that keeps salt from eating hemp. The first steps up the ratlines are a conversation with your stomach, but the view at the cross trees is clear for miles. Ropes hum like bees, the mast throbs with the long pulse of the swell. Your hands shine by noon, black as a cooper's, and the smell of Stockholm tar clings so deep it will live in your shirt for weeks. Between maintenance tasks, the ship drills its muscles. Run out, and gun crews spring to their places. You take the sponge to a black mouth still warm from last time, wring salt water into it, and work the barrel clean. Worm, sponge, charge, wad, shot, ram, prick, prime, your hands, learn the order so completely they will do it in smoke with your eyes streaming. The captain watches without a word, measuring smoothness like a tailor measures cloth. A minute one here, a minute there, and a broadside lands before the other man expects to die. There is glamour in none of it. You scrub green algae from the waterways where the deck meets the bulwark. You grease blocks so they will sing less under load. You overhaul coils that some tired soul put up badly at 2 in the morning. At the pumps you lean into the long break and feel the ship answer with a deep wet gulp as bilge water clatters out through the scuppers in a sour rush. A good crew keeps the pump handles polished by use. A bad crew keeps them polished by panic. When your watch is up 8 bells and relief, you swallow mess. Hard biscuits softened in porter or water, salt beef that needs scraping and soaking, a ladle of peas thicker some days than others. On merciful afternoons you mend, a torn shirt with palm and needle, a nicked thumb with a rag and a laugh. You braid a lanyard for your knife so it will not vanish into the sea the first time a gust takes your hand by surprise. You hang your hammock to air when the sun is generous, and you sleep with your boots under your head because boots walk away if you let them. Some watches put you in the crow's nest. You climb until the ship below becomes a toy that somehow holds your world. The wind is stronger aloft. It has teeth. You wedge your feet, shelter your eyes with a palm, and stare until the line between sea and sky becomes a knife your mind cannot quite hold. Clouds stand like towers in the east, flying fish flicker and vanish. A far line of birds may mean a reef or a shoal with a ship's worth of danger in it. Most hours you see nothing, which is its own work. Sometimes your mind serves you a sail that isn't there. Sometimes you nearly miss one that is. Discipline keeps you honest. You say what you see, not what you wish. Below, the ship turns tasks into time. The watch on deck sets and trims canvas braces eased, sheets hauled, clews lifted and lowered to feed the wind through the sails like water over a mill. The helmsman holds the compass card steady with a hand that looks lazy and is not. The sailing master studies a chart stolen from a Spanish captain and weighs currents he can feel in his bones. Men pass to and fro without bump or bark, learning each other's measures until the sloop moves like a body that belongs to them. Boredom is the enemy you will never quite defeat. Work blunts it, talk distracts it, a fiddler's tune at dogwatch pierces it like a needle through cloth. A story told in low voices at the windward rail makes the night shorter, even if the tale is untrue. But the routine is mercy too. It lifts hours like buckets from a well and empties them over the side. The Republic endures because men's hands stay busy, while their minds learn to drift without drowning. Not all work is the same under every wind. When a chase begins, the quiet equality of effort turns to a sharp edge. The captain's voice gains weight, slack vanishes, lines crack home as if they too can smell coin. In those moments, you feel how labour and leadership fit like a palm and a rope. One without the other is a burn waiting to happen. Next, we follow that shift of power, how a captain rules in a gale of gun smoke, and how, when the smoke thins, the quartermaster takes the helm of peace. The work never stops, but the mood shifts like a wind veering a point. One moment you are sanding a deck plank until your palms tingle. The next, a thin cry drops from the masthead. "Sail ho!" and the whole ship tightens. What the last part hinted at becomes plain now. In a chase, the voice that mattered most was a single one. The year is 1716, and a faint white stitch on the horizon is fattening. The captain steps to the weather rail, glass to his eye. The deck seems to hush around him. His orders are quick, clipped, and absolute. Brace to starboard, ease the foresheet, hoist a reefed topsail to drink a little more wind. Men move as if a wire ran through every wrist. The helmsman holds the compass card steady as a tabletop. The gun captains check vents with priming wires and test the spring of their tackles. Chain shot is laid out like coiled snakes. Above, sharpshooters thread themselves into the shrouds and prime their long fowling pieces with practiced care. The captain says nothing about the articles. He does not need to. In smoke and speed, debate kills. When the range closes, his authority hardens further. He chooses when the false colours come down, when the black goes up, when the first gun speaks. The ship crosses the enemy's stern by a hair's breadth. The order, "Fire!" rips a ribbon of thunder along the deck. You feel the recoil through your calves and smell the sweet bitter sting of powder in your nose. Sails on the other ship sag and tear, a mast gives a weary creak and topples like a felled pine. Grapnels fly, boarders. The captain's word runs end to end, and for a few breathless minutes he is the war chief the articles elected him to be. And then, as suddenly as a squall ends, the air changes. The enemy captain yields. The guns fall silent. Buckets of water hiss on warm iron and blackened planks. The captain's absolute command dissolves not into chaos, but into the other half of the ship's mind, the quartermaster's realm. Fear drains away with the powder smoke, and a different order begins. The quartermaster does not shout. He divides men into boarding details to strip the prize of rope, powder, sailcloth, food, and finery. He posts a trusted hand by the strongbox, another at the cabin door. He inventories aloud. Sugar in barrels, good. Tobacco bales, 50 and 5. Flour, a dozen casks. Wine, 3 pipes. Pistols, 8. Powder, sound. Every item becomes a promise that will be honoured later in coin. He assigns a prize crew and often enough goes himself to command the captured vessel home. On many ships, that was his right, to lead the boarding and the prize, because the spoils were his ledger to keep straight. His peacetime authority reaches further than cargo. At mess, he watches rations flow from cask to tin meat by weight, biscuit by count, grog by measure. If a man claims short commons, the complaint comes to him. He mediates quarrels before they ripen. 2 hands, who gambled a week's rum in a hot game of put that is his business. A whisper that someone filched a buckle from the prize, before division that is his business too. And the ship stiffens when such words are spoken. He can convene a jury of 12, or the whole crew, to hear the matter. The punishment, if guilt is proved, will be public and voted. Flogging, share forfeiture, even marooning on a shoal with water, a pistol, and 1 ball. In the magazine of this republic, justice is stored as carefully as powder. His authority balances the captains even where men sleep. The great cabin aft, the airy pride of a merchant skipper, belongs to the company now. The captain may use it to chart a course or meet with officers, but it is not a throne room. The crew may dine there on feast days. A fiddler may play there on a calm evening when the lantern's smoky light turns brass bright and faces soft. No one man claims the best space because everyone claims the ship. Electing leaders is not enough. Replacing them must be possible too. A captain who blusters in battle or steers the company into barren waters can be removed by vote at the next calm anchorage. Some crews did it mid-sea if temper and need were high. The quartermaster calls the meeting, keeps voices from knotting, and counts hands held in the lantern light. When the majority speaks, even a proud sailor must bow, and should the quartermaster himself grow partial at the scales or mean in judgment, he can be turned out with the same plain ceremony. Power here is a loan, not an inheritance. The logic is simple: 2 helms for 1 hull. In danger, a single will cuts the tangle. In safety, a different will keeps the first from hardening into tyranny. You can feel how the system was forged by men who remembered an officer's lash and vowed never again to be ruled without consent. The arrangement is not delicate philosophy but working wood. It flexes and holds. When a gale of shot comes, the captain's hand steadies the tiller. When the gale passes, the quartermaster's palm presses flat over the pay chest. By late afternoon, the prize is stripped to dull pine and gratitude. Her crew are set ashore in boats or carried along to be put off safe at the next chance. Another quiet rule: less mercy than prudence, since murder summons gallows. On your own deck, the quartermaster chalks tallies for all to see, then locks coin and goods in the great chest. The captain rolls up stolen charts on the table. The sailing master notes currents in a tight hand. The ship exhales. The rolls that just saved your life settle back into the pattern that makes life worth living. As night gathers, a breeze cools the gun deck. The lamp near the mainmast draws a gentle circle on oiled wood, and the smell of tallow fat edges the common air of tar and salt. The captain shares a pipe with the quartermaster by the weather rail. No ceremony marks the change between them. The rules themselves are the ceremony. In an hour, the watch will change. In a day, the company will meet to decide the next cruising ground. Between those moments lies the quieter power the quartermaster holds over bread, water, and grog, and over the small comforts that make a hard life bearable. Next, we turn to the taste of that life. Biscuit and salt beef, yes, but also turtle on deck, beach boucans, and the small, stolen feasts that kept scurvy and despair at arm's length. By dusk, the prize was tallied and stowed, the captain's charts rolled, and the great chest locked under the quartermaster's eye. With powder dry and tempers level again, the ship returned to its quieter sovereigns, hunger and thirst. What power, divided in battle, appetite, reunites each day? The Republic is held together by shares and votes, yes, but also by a tin spoon, a common pot, and the promise of something warm when the watch is relieved. Food comes in 2 kinds at sea: what survives the ocean and what the ocean provides. The first kind is why barrels line the hold like a small forest. Your mess gathers around a kid, a wooden tub where hard biscuit lies like pale bricks. The biscuit will crack a tooth if you let it. You wrap it against your tin to dislodge the weevils, soak it in small beer or water, and it softens into something that can be swallowed without a fight. Salt beef or pork follows, grey from brine, so hard with preservation that a knife must scrape it before the pot can persuade it. Dried peas, beans, or oatmeal thicken the day, sometimes with a fleck of onion or a sliver of fat if the cook can manage it. The meal is honest, dull, and the same today as yesterday. The drink is a third ration and a kind of mercy. Water, drawn sweet from shore, does not stay sweet in cask. It turns green, carries a wooden tang, and grows a skin you learn not to look at. So the cask is cut often with rum in these waters, turning foul water into something a man can swallow without his stomach rebelling. The mix travels under many names in different years, but the idea is older than the word: spirit stretched with water to make both last longer and keep men steady enough to work. A measured ladle, issued at set hours, warms the chest and rounds the edges of a long watch. Then comes the second kind of food, the kind piracy permits. A merchant captain keeps a schedule, a pirate crew keeps a weather eye and a hunger. When stores run low, the ship noses into a quiet cay, one of those low green flecks scattered across the Bahamas like grass seeds thrown by a careless hand. Longboats go ashore with muskets and knives, not for battle but for meat. Wild pigs root in the scrub, and goats stutter up rocks with a knack for making men curse. The smell of wood smoke climbs into the late light. On a beach of broken shells and the sound of small waves, a grate of green wood, called a Boucan, becomes a table. Strips of flesh hiss and drip, smoke curls into every fibre. The taste is simple and anchoring. Buccaneers got their very name from this practice, the Boucan lending them not only dinner but identity. At sea, lines trail astern with hope knotted to the end. A sudden silver twist, a shout, and a tuna or dolphin. The fish sailors call dolphin, and landsmen know as mahi-mahi, slaps the deck, all muscle and light. Men gut and clean with quick, economical motions learned from hunger. A pan appears as if by magic. A little salt, a lot of appetite. And 20 mouths lean closer. Best of all, a turtle's great green backs lifted from the water at night, when the sea is glass and stars are the only sound. A pair of hands flips the heavy creature on its carapace, and the animal lies still, alive for days if need be, its meat fresh when everything else aboard is tired and salted. You do not think too long about the patience in its large eyes. You think about scurvy held at bay for another week, about a stew that tastes of more than salt. Once in a while, the richest prize is not coin but a pantry. A captured captain's stores open like a small fair. White flour, soft as dust through the fingers, turns to bread under the cook's hard hands. A cask of sugar clumps in sparkling lumps that men suck like children. A pipe of wine or brandy makes the mess line louder, then softer, then a touch sentimental. Spices appear in pennyweights, cinnamon, cloves, the faint far perfume of nutmeg, and the ship smells. For an hour, like a port you have never seen, live chickens cluck in their wicker prison by the galley. A pig, saved for a saint's day no one aboard observes, becomes feast and silence in the same afternoon. On those nights, the deck is crowded with men who remember laughter without effort, and the memory is as nourishing as meat. Fairness rules the pot as surely as it rules the pay chest. The quartermaster stands at the head of the line when casks are broached, measures grog in plain sight, counts biscuit, weighs meat. If the salt beef runs stringy or short, a man can speak without risking a rope's end. You eat because you are part of a company that intends to keep you on your feet, not because a master enjoys the look of your obedience. In that difference, meals taste better than they otherwise would. Still, the sea collects its due. Weeks without greens and fruit swell gums and loosen teeth. Old scars ache and seem to open without cause. A ship that has been lucky with fish and turtle keeps the worst of scurvy in its shadow, but luck is not a system. Fever runs through hammocks like a rumour. Dysentery humbles even proud men. Rum dulls pain but heals nothing. On a hot noon, with the sun making a white river on the planks, you notice the cook's knife nick his thumb. A small thing. And you think of how small things rot in heat and time. For all the jokes about a sailor's love of his ration, food aboard is less indulgence than infrastructure. It is the grease in the blocks, the edge on the flint, the patience in the crow's nest. It marks the hours, softens the foul water, and at its best, reminds men they are something other than tools. A good day's catch means fewer aching teeth next week. A captured barrel of flour means singing after mess. A measured ladle of rum means the night is tolerable even when the wind refuses to speak. When the watch changes at 8 bells, a last curl of smoke from the galley threads the air. The lamplight near the mainmast finds the shine on a clean tin and the dull gleam on a well-scrubbed deck. Someone whistles a line from a tune the fiddler likes. You feel, briefly, wealthy in a way coin cannot buy, full, warm, a little drowsy and ready. But knives slip, ropes burn through palms, powder bites and fevers bloom fast in heat and crowd. When that happens, the cook's fire gives way to a different heat. Iron for cautery, saw for bone, and a black bottle for mercy. Next, we open the surgeon's chest. The last curl of cooking smoke thins in the dusk, and the smell that replaces it is sharper. Spirits uncorked, vinegar, singed cloth. From warm bread we turn because life at sea always turns to what keeps men alive when knives slip, when a fall from the tops breaks bone, when a musket ball finds a shoulder. In 1716, somewhere between the Caicos and the Windward Passage, mercy is measured in speed and in silver promised. A sea's surgeon's chest is treasure in its own right. When your crew captured a Barbados sugar ship last month, the quartermaster grinned wider at the walnut box than at the captain's wine. Inside were implements arranged like an orchestra, a Catlin knife with a thin double-edged blade for first cuts, a tenon saw with a stiff spine and bright teeth, forceps for fishing out shot, a trepanning set no one hopes to use, needles and silk for closing flesh, tourniquets with broad straps, cautery irons, heavy and dumb, bottles rowed cushioned in tow, laudanum opium dissolved in alcohol marked in a neat hand, spirits of wine, tinctures whose Latin names make even brave men uneasy, lint, bandage rolls, splints, a jar of salve that smells of resin and tallow. Fine instruments, yes, but they cannot turn the deck into a hospital, only into a place where death is made to wait. Most pirate ships could not lure a university-trained doctor though some surgeons, once captured, were persuaded with a full share, respect, and the promise of no press gang. A few, by report, were held to their work against their will in the rough arithmetic of survival. Failing a surgeon, the carpenter often stood in. He knew wood and edge, angles and pressure, and his saw did not shake. Sometimes the cook assisted. A man who could dress a carcass clean had the steadiness to cut when cutting was the only hope. When a fight ended and the smoke cleared, the deck became a theatre, as swift as it was brutal. A blanket for privacy if there was time. More often a barrel head for a table and canvas for a screen. A mate poured spirits on knives. Another heated iron till its tip glowed faint orange, the colour just before straw. Laudanum sweetened the air with a heavy perfume. Rum followed, and a leather strap for the teeth. A tourniquet went high on the limb. A stick twisted the strap down to pinch off the red tide. The first cut was quick and long. Skin parted in one clean ring. The second cut bit muscle. The saw sang 6 inches of bright steel through a human mast, and the crew holding the patient looked a long way past him, at nothing at all. Arteries were found in the seconds that mattered and tied off with silk. The stump was dressed with lint. The skin turned down over the bone like the cuff on a coat. A few coarse stitches carried hope. The heated iron hissed when it touched, and the smell of cooked flesh was the price of breath tomorrow. It was not all amputation. Cuts were stitched with a sailor's neatness. Splints were cut from spare planking and bound with strips of canvas. Dislocations were wrestled back with a prayer and a groan. Boils were lanced, abscesses drained. Fevers were met with cool cloths, diluted vinegar, and watchfulness that looked like love. Venereal disease, a common shadow in port, was treated with mercury in ways that helped little and harmed much. Still, men swallowed because something is easier than nothing. Scurvy gnawed at gums and opened old wounds as weeks without greens lengthened. Here, pirates' habit of stopping for turtles and fruit when they could sometimes push that spectre back farther than a king's navy managed on long hauls. Sometimes is the important word. The sea respects no clause. There were gentler tools, bladders filled with warm water soothed belly colic, poultices of bread and milk, or onion and fat if a cook was kind, softened angry skin. The surgeon, if you had one, kept a ledger of patients that read like a ship's log of small disasters. Left forefinger, crushed under block, bled, bound. Powder burn, right cheek, grease and time. He also kept an eye on filth. Vinegar washes scoured mess areas. Hammocks were aired whenever the sun allowed. Sulphur and gunpowder were burned below to smoke out stink and vermin. More ritual than remedy, perhaps, but ritual has its own medicine. What makes this rough art feel less like butchery is the promise that stands behind it. When you signed the articles, the Quartermaster tapped the schedule of payments for wounds, and it was not theatre. If a man lost his right arm, 600 pieces of 8 were marked for him before a single share was counted. 500 for a leg, a lesser purse for an eye, or a hand. Every crew set its own table of numbers, but the principle was common as rope. The payment did not restore flesh. It did restore dignity. On a merchantman, a maimed sailor might be left ashore with thanks and nothing more. Here, the company acknowledged the debt in coin because it intended to honour it in fact. When the chest was opened to divide a prize, the wounded stood first in the line. The work cost more than silver. After a battle on a glassy noon, you watched a carpenter wipe his saw on a rag and stare for a long minute at his own hands. He had felled pine and oak in storms that would make landsmen pray. He had built a new topmast in foul weather with rope between his teeth. None of it weighed on him as this did. The cook washed a bowl black with blood at the rail and scrubbed long after it shone. The quartermaster, who had stood easy as a man at market while tallying sugar and flour, looked older when he counted out the injury money. The survival of the wounded depended on 3 things more than any tincture. Speed, cleanliness, as far as the world allowed it, and luck. Infection had a taste sour-sweet in the air, and once it set in with fever and streaked redness, climbing the limb, there was little to do but hold a hand and keep a cup at a mouth. Yet men lived. You saw a powder monkey with 2 fingers gone. To learn to work a priming wire with the others, like a magician's trick. You saw a topman who lost a leg insist on standing watch at the galley with a half pike, because he could still be useful. The ship bends around those who refuse to break. Night falls. The lantern near the mainmast throws its patient circle. Somewhere aft, someone snores with a whistle through torn gum. The surgeon's chest is closed, latched, and set back beneath a bench. Above, the stars are cold and precise. After blood and heat, the deck wants a cooler mathematics angles, distances, a sun at noon, a north star at night. It wants the kind of knowledge that prevents the surgeon from opening his box again too soon. Next, the captain lifts a quadrant and the boy turns a sandglass. We measure speed with knots, find latitude with light, and reckon the long, uncertain east-west with memory and nerve. The surgeon's chest is latched, the deck sluiced, and a cooler order returns. Noon leans overhead like a white coin. On the quarterdeck, the captain braces his feet and lifts a quadrant. The boy stands ready with a sandglass. After heat and blood, the ship asks for numbers again. Navigation begins with direction, speed, and a place to start. The compass card floats on its pivot in a gimbaled box, steady though the hull breathes with the swell. The lubber's line holds the chosen heading as the helmsman makes small, almost lazy motions that are anything but. For speed, the sailing master uses a chip log, a small weighted board attached to a long line knotted at measured intervals. At his word, the boy flips a short glass roughly half a minute, and the line pays out astern, humming. Knots slide through the master's fingers. They count for that swallow of time, turning into miles per hour at sea knots. The board bites the water, the line sings, the glass empties, speed becomes a number he can write. Latitude is the easier half of position. Near Hispaniola in 1716, at noon the sun climbs to its highest, and the captain catches it with his instrument, often a backstaff or Davis quadrant, which lets him turn his back to the glare and read the sun's height by the shadow it casts on a calibrated arc. He notes the altitude, subtracts the sun's declination for the date, pulled from a worn almanac, and the answer gives him how far north he is from the equator. At night, the North Star sits as many degrees above the horizon as the ship sits degrees north of the equator. Even in the Caribbean, its low, unwavering fire 20 degrees or so above the black line of sea reassures tired eyes. Longitude refuses to yield so cleanly. There is no reliable clock at sea yet, no machine that can keep Greenwich time while a ship pitches and the air salts iron into red dust. So, east-west must be reckoned. The master begins at a known spot, say the eastern tip of Jamaica, and carries forward each change of course and speed on a traverse board. Every half hour, a small pegged board records heading and knots. Later, when the watch ends, the pattern of pegs is copied into the log and turned into a single vector. So far east, so far north. But currents are invisible hands. A west-setting stream can steal miles without asking. Wind shifts force tacks that look tidy on a chart and ragged in a man's bones. Over days, small errors breed big ones. You wake certain of your place and go to sleep a little less so. The ocean offers hints to those who will learn its grammar. Watercolor changes over the Bahama banks. It turns from cobalt to a clear, impossible green, and the bottom's pale sand announces itself long before the lead line does. Heaving the lead is an old ritual. A hand swings a long line, a weight of lead at its end, and lets it carry forward into the sea ahead. The line is marked at fathoms with leather, cloth, or knots. The leadsman reads what his fingers tell him and chants the news through the waist, and up to the quarterdeck. By the mark 5, 12 feet. Safe, for now. Tallow smeared in a hollow at the base of the lead brings up a sample of the bottom shell, sand, ooze, so the sailing master can match texture to the notes on his chart. Birds write marginalia. Terns and frigate birds often mean land or a shoal busy with fish. The angle of their flight at dusk helps the master guess where they roost. Lines of low cloud may speak of warm islands steaming the sky above them. Sargassum weed drifts in broad avenues that say, quietly, you have strayed toward the Sargasso's calm. Even smell plays a part. A shadow of green in the wind can mean mangrove somewhere to windward after rain. Charts are precious and suspect. Many aboard were stolen in honest pirate fashion. Spanish derroteros with tight-inked notes, pages from the English pilot, a French atlas bought from a Nassau rogue who swore he could read them and could not. Coastlines are drawn where men have sailed, where no one has written, the paper is blank and the sea shrugs. So the sailing master adds his own small truths in pencil. Soundings shoal sooner than shown. Current strong to WSW on the full of the moon. Fresh water on this quay brackish after storms. He stores those pages oiled and rolled in a tin under his bunk as if they were another set of lungs. All of this is work done with a body as much as with tools. In the cross trees, you feel the ship's heading in your ankles and the line of the swell in your knees. At the taffrail, when the chiplog pays out, the pull in your palms tells you whether the board has bitten or skated. On the quarterdeck, your eye learns the way the horizon swallows the sun on a clear day versus a hazed one, and how a low, soft mirage will lift or sink a distant hull. The ocean teaches by repetition and small punishments, and still, a prudent ship leaves uncertainty room to breathe. Landfall at night is the most dangerous hour a sailor knows. The master shortens sail and heaves to until dawn, though men are hungry and a harbour lies near. Running down a bold coast, he stays offshore until the lead sings friendly numbers over and over, and the smell of the land settles into certainty. When forced to thread a shoal, he sets boats ahead to sound and wait. Hands on the line, bare feet braced, calling fathoms like prayers. Sometimes the reckoning goes wrong by a day's sail or more, and a line of breakers appears where the chart promised open water. In those minutes, every small habit you have kept, the neat coil on a belaying pin, the clean knife, the tar you worked into a stay, suddenly lives beside you as a friend. Canvas comes off in order. The helm answers. The ship falls off, and the white teeth of the reef slide past under the bow, as if you had planned a close view all along. When calm returns, the master corrects the chart with a sour smile and a small, exact note. The reward for all this quiet arithmetic is time itself. Time saved from storms, time saved from hunger, time saved from the surgeon's saw. It is also the power to choose. A sloop that knows where she is can loiter in the lee of a channel where traffic must pass, or slip along a bank to fall like a hawk from the sun. A ship lost by a little is a ship lost by a lot when there is money to be found. Late in the day, the boy turns the glass and the captain lowers the quadrant. The card on the compass holds steady. The chip log comes in wet and heavy. The traverse board is pecked and ready for the logbook. Then the masthead calls, thin but certain, sail to windward. Numbers fold into nerve. To close, you must deceive. To win, you must frighten without firing. The locker with flags creaks open. Next, we hoist colours false first, then true, and let the black speak so the guns may not have to. From numbers to nerve, the change is small as a hinge. The locker lid lifts, and colour becomes a weapon. The windward passage lies bright in 1716, wind steady at a quartering angle. The captain closes his glass with a soft click. The masthead's cry hangs like a thread in the air. Somewhere forward, canvas booms once as a sheet is eased. You can smell hot tar and the faint sulphur ghost of last week's practice shots. False colours go up first. A neat roll of bunting English this time races to the gaff and snaps out crisp as truth. Ruse de guerre, the sailing master mutters. The old phrase that makes a lie feel lawful. At sea it is accepted deceit. Fly another nation's flag to come close, but show your true colours before you fire. Pirates are not alone in this. Navies and privateers do it as a craft. The point is distance, and the flag is a quiet hand inviting a stranger nearer. The stranger squints back across white water. He sees a Union flag and relaxes by a degree. Men on your deck relax by none. The captain trims to steal more weather gauge. The helmsman leans on the tiller as if he and the ship have agreed on a private joke. You feel the sloop's eagerness through your knees wants what men want too. The gap is a measured thing now. 2 cables, 1 less. Voices drop. Pistols are checked without looking. A priming horn whispers grain into a pan. Then, in a single breath, theatre turns to truth. Strike that, the captain says, and the false ensign runs down the halyard to leave the gaff bare. For a heartbeat, the mast is naked against a hard blue sky. A new bundle is bent on and runs aloft in a clean, dark bloom. A black flag, the death colour at sea. On some ships it is the simplest thing, a soot-dark field without emblem. On others it is a grammar of fear, a skull and long bones, a skeleton toasting the devil, an hourglass that says your sand is nearly spent, a bleeding heart pricked with a dart. You have seen one with a man and woman, hands extended, calico jacks crossed swords beneath, a threat dressed as a jest. You have seen the flagmen call Blackbeards, a horned figure hoisting a glass while a spear rips a heart, drops of blood stitched bright. These are brands as much as banners, reputations made cloth. Sailors trade their pictures in port the way children swap saints' cards. The red flag lives in the chest, too, a plain, deep red that soaks the eye like fresh paint. When raised, it says no quarter, No life spared if you resist. Not every crew believes in flying it, and not every story told about it is true. But men on both ships know what the red means when it breaks from the gaff. It is not always hoisted. Sometimes the black is warning enough. Today the captain keeps the red rolled tight. A fight ruins cargo, powder, and hands. Better to frighten a surrender than to earn one. You can watch fear move down the stranger's deck as if it were wind. A man at his wheel looks over a shoulder too often. Another drops a coil and has to pick it up twice. This is why flags matter more than iron. The image reaches the stomach faster than the shot. The pirate's business model is efficiency. A ship surrendered whole is worth twice what a burnt hulk yields. A crew alive to sail your prize is worth more than martyrs and smoke. Your own deck becomes larger the quieter it gets. The captain stands easy, his voice low and absolute. Hold your fire. He wants time for the black to do its work. Close enough now to see the other captain's coat, the wear in its cuffs, the widening of his eyes. The quartermaster's mouth is a thin line. His ledger lives in his head when the flag flies, calculating costs. If we fire and they fire back, how many men will we pay in silver for wounds? How many days to mend a foretop yard? How many lost to fever if we must put in for repairs rather than stay on the scent? Sometimes the merchantman has nerve. Once in a while he believes your black is bluff and runs up his own colours with a flourish. A tiny puff of white appears at his bowgun. A sound follows that feels smaller than it should. When that happens, red may answer black. Or the black is enough, and iron speaks instead. But many days, and this is the truth that keeps a pirate ship afloat, the flag does the killing by preventing it. A white cloth flutters from the stranger's shrouds, his colours come down, men on your deck let out breaths they did not know they were holding, a tiger's shoulders loosen by a fraction. There is a ritual to surrender. You keep a polite distance to avoid desperate grape shot. You hail across water with a trumpet. You demand the lowering of boats, the laying down of arms, the presence of officers on your quarterdeck to discuss terms. The flag remains black over your stern as a conversation partner no one talks over. You may hoist a second signal white for parley to make the dance smoother. The quartermaster moves in the background, already assembling boarding parties that look like reception committees and are not. What the flag begins, reputation completes. A captain known for mercy when obeyed, and for ferocity when challenged, does not have to explain his colours every time. Men have heard of him in taverns and on waterfronts. They have heard he lets crews go ashore with their lives, that he does not take a man's wedding ring, that he will hang a mate who pockets silver before the division. They have also heard that he once flew the red and kept his word. Stories do as much work as sewing. The flag has its own odours and textures you have come to know. Damp salt ground into the weave, the sweet faint smell of lampblack worked into a skull, sticky red that clings to fingers like jam. When the cloth slaps and snaps in a freshening gust, it sounds like a whip cracked across water. It takes a steady hand to hoist a threat cleanly. All of this theatre, economics, nerve lives under a single maxim. A good flag can save powder and lives. Powder is coin that burns, lives are shares that breathe. The best day is the day when the black does the talking and the guns keep their counsel. But not every day is best. Some skippers fire on fear, out of pride or panic. Some cargo is guarded by convoy guns that cannot be talked out of speaking. Some men mistake prudence for weakness and must be taught to read the language of flags too late. When that happens, the conversation turns to iron and wood, to chain shot and grape, to grapnels biting rail to rail. Next, the black smoke answers the black flag, the anatomy of an attack, where the first broadside cripples, the second decides, and cold steel finishes what fear began. What the black flag began, iron now finishes. The stranger has not struck, pride stiffening his back like a splint. The year is 1716, late light over the windward passage, and wind thrums in the rigging like a plucked line. Your captain's voice narrows to a point. Theatre is over. The work of minutes decides the next month. He wants weather gauge and a raking shot. Cross his stern, he says, and the helmsman answers with the smallest motion of wrist and shoulder. Sails are trimmed so the sloop slides diagonally across the merchantman's wake, crossing the T, the old tactic that lets one ship pour a whole side's guns against the narrow ends of another. You feel the deck vibrate as men heave the carriages out, trucks squealing, breaching ropes taut as bowstrings. The air tastes of salt and old smoke. Somewhere forward, a boy licks his lips and whispers a prayer to the nearest star. Guns are loaded for purpose, not drama. The first pieces to speak take chain shot 2 iron balls linked by a short length of chain, set to whirl in the air like a thrown flail. On the lift, the gun captain's call, waiting for the swell to raise muzzles just so. Fire! The broadside lands as a single crack that slaps the chest. The chain hisses through canvas and rope. A topsail slumps as if someone has cut its throat. Lines snap back with the sound of anger. Men on the enemy deck throw up their hands and dive for cover. Your sloop bears off a touch, sails drawing full, and runs parallel now with the wounded vessel like a wolf shouldering a stag. The second broadside speaks in Grape. Canvas bags packed with dozens of lead balls turn guns into giant shotguns. Smoke rolls out in a warm, greasy wall. Splinters scythe the enemy's rail white. A figure at their wheel folds as if a string has been cut. From the shrouds above you, sharpshooters punch neat, deliberate holes through confusion helmsmen first, then officers by their coats and their habit of pointing. A swivel gun at your bow rattles like a drum, its mouth loaded with scrap iron and pebbles. You do not aim to sink, you aim to stun, bleed, and blind. Over the roar you catch smaller sounds, the breath of men ramming home charges, the soft tear of priming pricked at the vent, the hiss as a bucket's wet swab meets hot iron, the tear and snap of falling rigging, a groan deep in another ship's bones. Powder smoke folds around your head and turns the world into a grey room that smells of brimstone and roasted rope. Your eyes stream, your mouth fills with a taste like old coins, grapnels. Now that his sails hang ragged, you want him close. Lines hiss across the gap, heavy iron hooks bite into the enemy's bulwarks with wet thunks. Men heave in rhythm until the ships kiss and grind, timber on timber, a sound like teeth. In the high rigging, a man throws a clay granado, a small pot filled with powder and scraps, fuse fizzing into the tangle of their foredeck. It bursts with a dirty pop, more terror than death, but terror is coin you can spend. Boarders away. The order is not shouted so much as released. You go over the rail with a pistol in one hand and a cutlass in the other, the blade short and ugly as a butcher's tool. Pistols are single use at this range, flash, kick, smoke, and then a club. Steel does the close work. A blunderbuss booms at your elbow, its mouth big enough to eat a fist, and men scatter from its breath. A boarding axe bites a line, dropping a tangle across 3 panicked sailors. Somewhere, someone screams through his teeth and keeps moving. You learn that courage can be quiet. It looks like a man who keeps loading cartridges into hands he cannot see for smoke. The fighting is not elegant, and it is not long. Pirates are many for a reason. Numbers smother resistance fast. Your quartermaster, who spends most days counting, leads this kind of arithmetic in person. He moves with his mouth shut and his eyes open, cutting where he has to, shouting men clear of the companionway, where a panicking passenger flails with a small sword like a man in a dream. Above, the sharpshooters keep picking at any bright coat that tries to make a stand. Then, like a door unlatching, it ends. A cry of "quarter" rises from a dozen throats, weapons clatter to deck. The enemy captain shows empty hands and breathes fast through his nose. The powder haze thins. Everything you were just doing stops with a mechanical sympathy. Guns fall silent, flints are half-cocked safe, blades lower, lungs catch up. The deafness in your ears rings like a kettle. You notice, absurdly, that a coil of rope near your foot is beautifully made. The brain looks for small mercies when big ones have just arrived. This brief, brutal, and controlled was the plan all along. The best victory leaves the prize, floating, and the crew breathing. A sunk ship is heavy with loss. Cargo gone to the bottom. Men dead who might have fetched a ransom. Hours wasted fishing what can be fished. A burned ship is worse. What you now have instead is wealth made of barrels and bales, and a crew that can be disarmed, confined, and set ashore alive at the nearest safe cove. Mercy here is less virtue than policy, and it is a good policy. Now the quartermaster stands upright in the wreckage and becomes himself again. He orders arms stacked, powder doused, matches drowned. He posts men to guard the magazine and the cabin. He calls for a prize crew, names a steady hand as master, and tells you off to the hold with 2 others to tally what matters. You feel the world tilt from smoke to sums. The ink and the ledger will make sense of what the iron and oak have done. On your own deck, the wounded are counted and led to the surgeon's chest. The rest of you turn your eyes to the cargo that will soon become coin, and then become bread, rum, shirts, pistols, songs, quiet, and sleep. The flag is furled, the iron is cooled, the ship returns to its other kind of order. Next, we count the cargo, pay the hurt before the hail, and watch fair division turn violence into wages openly, name by name, under a sky that remembers nothing and forgives everything. The guns have fallen silent, and the two hulls rest together like weary beasts. Smoke thins to the smell of singed rope and hot iron. What fear and iron have torn open, ink and order now stitch shut. It is still 1716, late light on the windward passage, and the quartermaster, who just led you across a rail with a cutlass, becomes again the man with a ledger and a level voice. He begins where survival begins, with the dangerous things. Powder first, kegs roughed with rope for grip, lifted from the magazine and set apart on your own deck. Cartridges counted, fuses drowned, muskets and pistols disarmed, priming horns corked and taken. Then canvas and cordage, spare sails unbent and bundled, coils of fresh manila rope measured and marked, blocks and tackles inventoried. These are treasure you can touch with work-hardened hands. The difference between running and limping, between catching a prize and watching her walk away. Only then does he turn to the hold, where wealth sits in barrels, not in chests. The air that rises from the hatch is a heavy sweetness, molasses and sugar sweating through staves. The fainter, deeper rasp of tobacco leaf baled and corded. The dry mineral scent of indigo in tight casks that stain whatever they touch a monk's robe blue. Flour lies soft as dust. Rice hisses into scoops. Silk rustles like water. A few bolts of fine linen crackle when unrolled. There may be brandy by the pipe or wine by the hogshead, and if there is, the crew breathes as one in a way the quartermaster pretends not to notice. He tallies aloud. Sugar, 16 hogsheads sound. Tobacco, 52 bales. Indigo, 12 small casks. Flour, 8 barrels, 2 damp. Brandy, 2 pipes, 1 weeping. He posts men at the cabin doors to collect small valuables without malice. Silver shoe buckles, a watch, a velvet coat that fits no one aboard but will fit someone ashore. He forbids pre-division like a priest forbids blasphemy. A coin palmed now, a silk square knotted away in a sleeve, is not a peccadillo. It is treason to the only government you have. The ship watches itself, because trust is the only glue that works in salt air. A prize crew is named to fly the wounded merchantman to a friendly shore. The man the quartermaster picks to command her is steady, unshowy. He will not drink the cargo on the way. For the rest of you, it is back to your own deck, where a chest waits that holds powder sometimes and coin more rarely. Do not picture a gleaming cascade of gold. Most voyages pay in barter first and coin later. The real money appears ashore, when sugar becomes pesos and bales become pieces of 8. Nassau does that for you, or a quieter cove with a merchant who does not ask questions he cannot afford to write down. On New Providence, the beach is a ledger of its own. Small sheds where rum is measured and tobacco weighed. Back rooms where a planter's agent and a fence agree that indigo will be worth this much today and more next month if pirates leave off visiting for a while. In these exchanges, the Spanish milled dollar, the 8-real coin, stamped neat as a seal, is a common tongue. Sometimes the coin is whole, sometimes it is cut into bits to make small change. The bright edges showing fresh silver, like a new wound. Touchstones come out, coins get a quick nick to prove their metal. The quartermaster watches, unamused by rogue scales or quick fingers. Only when cargo has turned into coin does the ritual you joined for begin. The entire company is called to the quarterdeck. The chest is hauled into the open like a small altar, and opened where all can see. The smell now is not sugar, but silver clean and faint as a wet nail. The quartermaster stands with a list, the captain stands with nothing at all. Before shares, the quartermaster says, we pay what we owe. The wounded are called first. The powder-blackened carpenter, who yesterday set down his saw with hands that did not quite know how to be still, counts 600 pieces of 8 into a bag for a man who lost his right arm to a splinter you could not have seen in time. For the leg, 500 into another. A man with a blasted eye gets his 100. The ship breathes easier because an ugly promise has been kept. Then the division. Your articles set the scale, and everyone aboard can recite it like a psalm. The captain receives 2 shares, not a king's purse, but a premium for nerve and skill when smoke makes seconds cost lives. The quartermaster takes 1.5 for the ceaseless arithmetic that keeps knives in their sheaths and rations even. The gunner, carpenter, boatswain, and if captured and consenting the surgeon, each a quarter above a man. Every able seaman, one full share on the nose. Names are called, and bags are filled in public. If a man is in his hammock with fever, his mate steps forward, and the crew watches the coin weighed into a second bag, tied and labelled, and stowed where hands that should not touch it cannot find it. If a man is dead, what he would have taken goes to the chest held back for the company's injured and the widows and children some will never see again. Not every crew writes that clause. More should. Yours did. The quartermaster keeps back a little for ship's stores. Tar, candles, shot, flints, sailcloth, new cordage when captured rope runs out. He keeps back, too, an emergency fund, because weather is a kind of enemy no one votes on. Then the chest is shut, the hasp dropped, and the key put where the articles say it lives. Men weigh their bags in their palms, an old gesture that does not change from century to century. It is heavy. It is independence. Even now, the rules hold. Pre-division theft discovered after the fact is brought to the rail. The guilty man does not plead much. He knows the stakes. The punishment is what your articles set hands, vote the measure and stomachs accept it. No one likes these minutes. Everyone demands them. Justice is public because trust, like sailcloth, frays where it is kept in the dark. By twilight the deck looks ordinary again. Coils neat, guns run in. A boy wiping powder smuts from a breach with a rag older than he is. Below, a dozen men sit cross-legged on the deck, counting coins by touch. Somewhere, a voice sings 2 lines of a tune and lets them hang unfinished in the warm air. You tie your bag's leather thong twice and tuck it under your hammock, then lie back and feel the ship rock you like a slow breath. Tomorrow the anchor will rattle up, and the sloop will lean into the trades toward a sandy harbour where fences wait and tavern doors swing. Coin will become noise, and noise will become stories, and stories will become another kind of ballast. Next, we step ashore at Nassau where silver turns to rum, dice slap barrelheads, shirts are replaced, pistols upgraded, and a week disappears like foam on a hot beach. By twilight the coins lay counted and tied, and the chest was shut beneath the quartermaster's key. What ink and order completed on deck now tilts toward noise and light ashore. The year is 1716, and your sloop rides easy off New Providence. Ahead, Nassau's low strand gleams pale, a necklace of sand with a few broken teeth of timbered roofs. The sea still rocks you as the longboat pulls for shore. The oars beat a slow, even heart. Behind you, the ship breathes in the dark. Before you, laughter runs along the beach like sparks. The first step onto land is always strange. After weeks of a moving floor, the earth feels untrustworthy in its stillness. Your legs argue with your mind and lose. Sand squeezes cool between your toes. The night air is heavy, with sweet things rum, roasted pork, crushed sugar, and behind it the older smells of sweat and smoke. Nassau is no grand port with stone quays and tidy warehouses. It is a sprawl of shacks and sheds, canvas roofs and plank walls, all stitched together by need. Fort Nassau sits up the slope, more boast than bulwark, its guns often pointing at nothing in particular. In the lanes between huts, lanterns swing. A fiddler saws away on a tune you half know, and a dog barks at nothing at all. The beach is a market that pretends it isn't. Fences men who know how to turn bales into silver and silver into quiet lean in doorways, and smile without showing teeth. A merchant in a stained linen coat strokes the indigo dust on a cask like it were velvet. Another weighs a lump of raw sugar in his palm, and grunts as if judging bread. They talk of weather, of prices in Charleston, of a Spanish guardacosta seen too near Inagua for anyone's comfort. You watch the quartermaster's shadow move from door to door, measuring scales with his eyes, tasting suspicion like spice, turning a hold's worth of goods into coin across 3 conversations and a handshake. Your coin, for now, is still whole. The Spanish-milled dollars, stamped neat and cold, lie in the bag at your belt with a weight that changes how you stand. A man with a small hammer and a steady hand can turn 1 coin into 8 bits in a blink, and the bright edges flash in lamplight like quick fish. Prices call to you without speaking. A stall offers pistols short, brass-barreled, smooth in the hand, with a crisp touch at the trigger. The smith lets you feel the spring on a new lock. It clicks like certainty. Next door, a bolt of fine linen slides under your fingers like cool water. Shirts cut from it will not rasp your burned neck. A sailor you know waves a powder horn at you, its plug snug and the horn carved with a crude map of islands you almost recognize. The world is full of useful things when you have a bag of silver and a year's worth of wanting. Taverns pull like tides. One is nothing but a roof of palm fronds and 4 posts. Another calls itself grand with a plank bar and a shuttered window. Rum moves through the night like weather. You taste a measure neat, and your chest warms in a fast line. Someone brings out a dish of pork, the skin blistered and singing when a knife goes in. Fat drips onto clean sand and hisses out. A man roasts a sea turtle in its own shell, spooning the rich broth to anyone who can balance a tin. Easy voices rise and trip and rise again. Dice rattle on a barrelhead. The small clatter like rain. In a corner, a game of put runs hot, low stakes at first, then a shout, then a laugh that sounds like a cry. A piece of 8 changes hands and is gone. You expected riot. You find also routine. A row of women sells fruit, limes, oranges, plantains in rough baskets. The air around them smells clean and sharp, and you buy without haggling, a small insurance against bleeding gums. A carpenter has set up a lantern by his bench. He will true a bent boarding axe or fix the crack in a pistol stock for a fair price and a drink. A boy thread pipes through the crowd, selling flints by the dozen from a pocketful that seems never to empty. A blacksmith wipes his face with a rag and asks if anyone has seen a decent length of good iron. Everyone laughs. No one has. The pendulum swings. Order at sea, riot on shore, back and forth until men feel something like balance. You watch how your mates spend, according to private compasses. One buys a bright ribbon and tucks it into his cap, as if to convince himself he is a gent. Another puts nearly everything with a canny merchant for safekeeping, and a promise to deliver goods to a cousin in South Carolina. By morning, he will likely think better of trust and worse of cousins. A third becomes a steady stone in a corner, drinking slowly, saying little. Listening a lot, his luxury is silence. Stories grow in the warm dark the way mould blooms on damp bread. At one table, a man swears he saw Blackbeard light slow match in his beard and laugh as if fire were perfume. At another, someone tells of a chest lifted from a sand quay by moonlight, heavy enough to make 4 men stagger. Near the door, a fellow insists that a captain made a man walk a narrow plank into green water while sharks wrote their names beneath. No one who has seen a real fight believes him, but they let the picture hang because it is bright. A fiddler changes keys and the room bends with him. Dice clatter, a pistol is bought, a shirt is tried on and admired, and the night grows easy in your bones. And yes, the bag grows light. The phrase, "a short life and a merry one," is not a slogan so much as a diagnosis. You spend because you may hang next month. You spend because the memory of the cat and the bilge and bad water still pricks. Better a good pistol, and a better shirt now than coins under a hammock where rats know how to chew. Better a feast today than a plan years away on a calendar you may never meet. The logic is not foolish. It belongs to a clock that ticks louder at sea than on land. Close to dawn, the sky turns a tired grey. Someone sings the last 2 lines of a tune and lets them die on the air. You walk back to the beach with a full belly, a new pistol, a shirt softer than any you have worn, and a head that hums in a way the ship's planks will not love. The longboat's gunwales are cool under your palms. The oars dip and lift. The island slides backward without a sound. On deck, the quartermaster has already posted the list. Water casks filled, biscuits loaded, powder dry. The pendulum starts its swing the other way. The sloop will be a world of order again by noon. Even there, though, Nassau lingers in tunes, in stories, in quiet arguments about what is true and what is told for pleasure. The days to come will need company as much as canvas. Next, we climb back aboard and into the slow hours. Music after mess, shanties for work, games for rum, and the myths men make to keep the night from feeling too long. The beach at Nassau recedes to a pale line, and the oars go quiet. Back aboard by midnight, the ship folds again into its orderly self, coils neat, lamps shaded, the deck still holding a trace of tobacco and roasted fat from men who came up late with sticky fingers and laughed about it. 1,716 slides on. The watch is changed. The wind hums low in the rigging. A lantern by the mainmast circles its soft light on boots and knuckles. The hours between work and sleep need tending, or they rot. So the crew tends them with tunes, with games, with talk, and with the stories that will outlive them all. Music arrives on bare feet. A fiddler paid a half share by vote because sound keeps men from going thin in the mind, sits on a coil and draws a slow line from the strings that seems to polish the air. It is not concert music, it is closer to breathing. After mess, he'll give you laments and crooked dances, the bow sawing time for feet that must remember how to be feet and not hands. When the anchor must be raised, the tune changes to work. The shantyman's call answers a capstan's need. A chorus lands where the heave should land. Some say the word shanty is newer than your ship, but the habit is old. A leader sings a line with a little grin in it. The crew comes back as one, and a heavy thing moves when men alone could not have shifted it. Halyard songs for hauling, capstan songs for turning, short drag chants for quick jobs where breath must be saved. Music makes rope bite cleaner, and time pass without complaint. Games scrape their own rhythm into the boards, dice tumble on a barrelhead, a dry rattle like rain on canvas. Cards slap down with greasy familiarity put loo, all fours games whose rules ride in men's heads and travel faster than ships. Stakes begin with trifles, a ration of rum, a turn at an easy watch, a small favour to be named later. Then a silver bit appears and the circle tightens, a laugh gets sharper. The Quartermaster's eyes pass by, cheese-paring cheats shrivel under that look. The articles do not mind a flutter, most crews allow it, but cheating is an offence against more than money. It threatens the glue that holds men together in a lee rail night, when a hand must be trusted without seeing the face. Words do most of the work. A man with a steady voice tells of a gale off Cape Hatteras that threw green water across a quarterdeck like a box of glass. He turns the story so the broken spars shine as if they were precious. Another spins a yarn about Henry Morgan and the sack of Panama, lifted from a printed pamphlet that has been thumbed into grey softness. Someone else swears he heard of a governor posting a king's pardon, so clear a man could taste the ink, and another swears he knows a friend who knows a mate who took it and now keeps a shop honest as Sunday. News and legend tangle, and no one brings a knife to separate them. In the dark, comfort matters more than footnotes. Ghosts come aboard like spray. The Flying Dutchman appears in a dozen versions, all of them true for the length of the telling the lantern far to windward that will not draw near, the captain who swore to round a cape if it took him to judgment and was obliged. A man hears women singing under the keel and goes quiet for a week. Another dreams of a black coach rattling through Portsmouth streets with an empty place left for him. Ports breed superstition, so do miles of night. Out of this stew, the myths that will stick to pirates for centuries begin to float, and your ship is a good place to skim them off and see what they taste like. Buried treasure, the image is bright. A chest iron banded and heavy enough to make 4 shoulders sag, a map with a delicate X, a palm bending obligingly for secrecy. In your world, where shares are counted in public and men spend with both hands because tomorrow may have a rope in it, secret hoards are rare. The one story that smells of truth is the privateer turned pirate Captain William Kidd. Burying a little to bargain with the law, an exception that will bloom later into a fashion of fiction. The rest is appetite dressed as history. Walking the plank, lantern light loves the picture, a blindfold, a board, a splash, sharks milling like saw blades in milk. Ask the oldest foremast hand aboard how he has seen it done, and he will squint as if at far weather, and say men are thrown over, or shot, or spared, or marooned with a flask and a pistol, but no time is wasted on theatre when fear and work are plenty. The plank belongs to playhouses and penny books more than to decks that must be cleared for action. The truth is ugly enough without the stage. Parrots on shoulders and monkeys in hats? Once in a while, yes, sailors are magpies and the tropics glitter. A bird might ride the foremast for a week and curse like a boatswain by Sunday. But most days, noise is already dear, feathers molt and make a mess. Seed costs coin that tastes better as rum. The parrot survives in pictures because it is bright. The knife and the needle endure in memory because they were used. Even the flag stories need trimming. The skull and bones that your captain favours are only one voice in a small chorus. Another ship might paint a bleeding heart or an hourglass that says a man's sand is running out. The red flag promising no quarter is rare and real, but more often the black itself does the work fear first, iron only after. Rum is a companion here, but the mix called Grog by name will be hammered into official form by a navy man, a generation from yours. For now the idea is older than the word, foul water made bearable by spirit, and a measured ladle to keep hands steady. If you could bottle the sound of these nights, the low murmur of men trading tales, the bow's small tap against a wave, the fiddle turning a corner of darkness into a room you would have a lantern you could carry anywhere. The culture aboard is not an ornament, it is the ballast that keeps men from rolling in their own thoughts. The jokes, the games, the songs, the earnest disputes about whether a certain captain truly tied slow match in his beard, all of it stitches days together, so that fear does not pick them apart. Near dawn, a last tune winds down. The lantern's halo shrinks, the deck whitens to a pewter sheen. You fold your cards, or your hands, or your sore smile, and tuck the night away. When sun climbs, there will be a new rumour. A governor in the Bahamas who looks like a sea captain and speaks like a document. Frigates stretching canvas for the same channels you favour. Pardons nailed up and traps laid beneath their ink. The stories will have to make way for orders, and the flag will do more work in months to come than the fiddle. Next, the world closes in carrots and sticks, pardons and hunts, Woods Rogers at Nassau, and the many endings a pirate might meet before another book begins, telling his life like a legend. The rumours from last night's stories come true in daylight. They do not come with thunder. They come with canvas. July 1718. Nassau roads lie still as a millpond when a small squadron stands in Royal Navy grey against green water. At their head rides a man who knows your world well enough to close it. Woods Rogers, a former privateer, now governor, his motto neat as a knife. Expulsis piratis restituta commercia. Pirates expelled, commerce restored. On shore, the fort's guns are finally pointed at something that matters. On deck, men watch without talking. Rogers brings a parchment that bites less than iron and a stick wrapped around that carrot. Months earlier, in London's cold rooms, King George's proclamation offered a royal pardon to any pirate who surrendered by a fixed date. The language is dry, the meaning is warm, come in from the wind and leave the gallows behind. Rogers posts it in Nassau, where rum can't blur the ink. Some crews drift to shore like tired birds. Men who have felt powder singe their cheek and watched friends fall over the side weigh a quiet shop, or a small boat against another broadside, and the slow swing of a rope. Many take the deal, others spit. Charles Vane reads the words and sees a trap. He fills the harbour with smoke and slips out under it. Calico Jack Rackham accepts, then thinks better of peace, and steals a sloop to return to the old trade, like a man waking from a brief, respectable dream. Benjamin Hornigold, older and newly cautious, takes the pardon with both hands and soon turns hunter, guiding Rogers's ships along channels he himself once used to prey. It stings to be chased by the lessons you taught. The clamp tightens fast. In November 1718, cold water slaps the flats at Ocracoke Inlet as sunrise lights thin mist to pewter. There, a Royal Navy lieutenant named Robert Maynard springs an ugly trap. Blackbeard's sloop lies nearly aground. Maynard runs in with two small vessels, swallows a brutal volley, and then his own deck's cleared to look ruined waits. When the pirates leap aboard, his men surge up from below. The fight is smoke, shouts and wood chips. When it clears, Blackbeard lies cut and shot, a body like a legend refusing to fall until it has to. His head goes to the bowsprit as proof that fear too can be taxed and paid. Others meet the rope. Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate, is taken near Cape Fear and hanged in Charlestown that December, praying long and plain. Rackham is caught in 1720 off Jamaica by a pirate hunter named Jonathan Barnett. His crew breaks under Grape and shock. At Spanish Town, two of his company, Anne Bonny and Mary Read, plead their bellies and win a brief delay. Read dies in prison. Bonny vanishes into rumour. Rackham swings at gallows point with the harbour watching. Vane is deposed by his own men, marooned, rescued, captured again, and hanged in 1721. Bartholomew Roberts' Black Bart roves far wider and longer. In 1722, off Cape Lopez, a Navy sloop, the Swallow, finds him. A single round of grape takes him where he stands, glittering, and the crew grants his wish to go to the deep. Dozens from his company face trial at Cape Coast Castle. The beach there remembers their footsteps and then forgets. Marooning remains as a sentence among your own, though few meet their end that way. A man set alone on a quay with a pistol, a ball, and a flask becomes a lesson more than a tale. The commoner endings are smaller and harder. Surrender and swallow pride on a governor's step. Try to go straight and find honest work thin on the ground. Take a small boat and fish the flats. Open a shop that mostly sells stories. Or vanish, as Henry Every did a generation earlier, into the crack between record and wish, leaving behind a rumour of a life lived quietly on stolen gold. Likely? Number. But even a hard century keeps one chair for a legend. By 1726, the busy part of the Golden Age is over. Frigates have learned your shortcuts, governors have learned your prices, pardons have weeded the desperate from the devoted, the gallows have finished the devoted. The sea is the same as it was, but the routes through it feel narrower. Your sloop still leans to the trades and still hums like a live thing, but she meets more patrol craft than prey. The ships go silent, the stories do not. In London, 1724, a book lands on tables sticky with ale. A general history of the robberies and murders of the most notorious pirates by a Captain Charles Johnson, a name that likely belongs to no captain at all. It is half archive, half theatre, depositions and dates beside dialogues no court clerk heard, yet it fixes names like nails, Blackbeard, Rackham, Bonnet, Mary Read, Anne Bonny, and preserves truths your hands would recognise. Articles read on a barrelhead, a quartermaster's quiet power, injury money counted first. It also sands off edges and makes the worst men handsomer in the telling. The book sells. It keeps selling. Every retelling moves the furniture a little. A century later, a Scotsman writing for a bored boy redraws the room entirely. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, 1883, gives the world parrots with names, a map with a delicate X, and Long John Silver, the smiling architect of every pirate since witty, limping, treacherous, charming, a friend until he isn't. The rare case of kids' buried goods swells into a universal law. Walking the plank, born of theatre, finds a stage on every deck. The Jolly Roger becomes a single skull and bones instead of a crowded little family of banners. We like these simplifications. They make sleep easier. Cinema fastens the mask. Errol Flynn swings on painted rope and kisses danger politely. A Disney island turns Stevenson's pages into light. Later, a swaggering trickster with coal-black eyes makes pirates funny again. None of it is your life, and all of it is, because it keeps the soft truth, that men in a hard world imagined a different order, wrote it down in plain clauses, and tried to live under it even when doing so bent nails in their own hands. If you listen closely, behind the music and the swords, you can still hear the quieter sounds, a holystone rasping plank, a leadsman calling, "By the Mark 5. A quartermaster counting coin into a scarred palm. History leaves those noises when it goes to bed. Legend hums them into a tune. The lantern by the mainmast throws its circle one last time. Sleep comes easier when endings arrange themselves. Battle, rope, exile, pardon, or the blessed anonymity of growing old. Outside the rail, the Blackwater says nothing and says it well. In a moment, I'll gather a short list of calm, reliable books, lights you can carry to the next harbour, whenever you like.